Most electrical accidents tend to be caused by either unsafe equipment and installation, an unsafe work environment, or unsafe work practices by employees. There are several potential signs that an electrical fixture could pose a hazard. Any tripped circuit breakers or blown fuses can indicate that there's too much current flowing through the circuit. If tools, wires, or other equipment are unusually warm after use, that could also be a sign of too much current. A ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, will shut off any circuit it is part of if it detects current leakage. When doing construction or construction-like activities, GFCIs must be used for any cord-based tools that don't plug directly into a grounded and permanent outlet. Unused openings in electrical boxes or equipment and open or improperly installed equipment covers need to be corrected before anyone works on or around them. Work can be more hazardous to perform in areas without sufficient lighting and can be especially hazardous in wet environments. Wet conditions could cause an electrical hazard where one may not have existed before. A cord with broken insulation or a cord not rated or listed for wet locations can cause a shock hazard if it's used in a wet location. Finally, if any insulation around wires or connections is worn or frayed, the exposed wiring can be a shock risk. When conductors are too small to carry the current within them, they can overheat, damaging the insulation or even causing it to fail. For example, if you're using a portable tool, such as a drill, with an extension cord that is too small for the drill will draw more current than the extension cord can handle, causing the cord to overheat and potentially start a fire. The circuit breaker could be the right size for the drill, but not for the cord. If there are too many devices plugged into an outlet, the combined electrical current can cause wires to heat up. If conductor insulation heats up enough to melt, current could arc and cause the circuit breaker to trip or even start a fire. Equipment grounding conductors can also become damaged or disconnected by a break or damage in internal wiring or a disconnected grounding prong. Cords with a broken or missing ground prong cannot be used and must be taken out of service immediately. All live parts of electrical equipment operating at 50 volts or more must be guarded against accidental contact. Forms of protection can include approved electrical cabinets or enclosures, providing temporary protective shields or insulation, or limiting access to authorized employees only. Any entrances to guarded locations must be marked with warning signs to prevent unqualified employees from entering the area, and all areas containing energized parts must be properly lit so that workers can see to work safely. Live parts must be properly de-energized and locked and tagged out before work can be performed on the equipment. If equipment absolutely cannot be de-energized for some reason, such as when performing testing that requires the equipment to remain live, only qualified employees may work on the equipment using appropriate insulated tools and equipment, and all unqualified employees must be kept away from the area while the work is being performed. Overhead power lines are usually not insulated, which makes them a dangerous shock hazard. This is why you should never approach downed power lines after a storm, since they could still be energized. Whenever possible, overhead lines should be de-energized or guarded in such a manner that people and conductive objects are prevented from contacting the lines. When this is not possible, unqualified workers working in the vicinity of overhead power lines must keep themselves and any conductive objects they might touch, including tools, ladders, and vehicles, at least 10 feet away from the unguarded, energized power line. Longer distances will be required for high-voltage power lines. Only qualified workers may perform any work on or within 10 feet of unguarded, energized power lines, and they must use special insulated tools and PPE.
Burns are not all the same. First-degree burns are superficial burns that cover a small area with no blistering or broken skin. These need only first aid and pain relief. Second and third-degree burns are much more serious and require professional medical attention. If there is blistering, broken skin, or loss of feeling in the burned area, or if the burn exists over a large area, Provide first aid and then immediately call for help. There are also different types of burns, such as thermal burns, chemical burns, and electrical burns, but the way they're treated is generally very similar. For thermal or chemical burns, the most important thing is to remove as much heat from the burn site as possible. For smaller burns, run cool water over the burn for a minimum of 30 minutes. If the burn is small enough, keep it completely underwater. Flushing the burn takes priority over calling for help. Do not attempt to immerse large, severe burns in water. Do not cover the burn with anything except clean, non-stick material, such as bandages. Do not scrub the burn, and do not apply any soap, ointment, or home remedies. For severe burns, after flushing, elevate the burn area above the heart if possible. Don't offer the burn victim anything to eat or drink, but keep the victim covered with a blanket to maintain a normal body temperature until medical help arrives. If someone has received an electrical burn, the treatment is a little bit different. Do not touch the victim who has been in contact with electricity unless you are both clear of the power source. If the victim still has contact with the power source, electricity will travel through the victim's body and possibly electrify you. If you can safely do so, de-energize the power source. Once the victim no longer is in contact with the power source, your priority is to check for any airway obstruction and to check breathing and circulation. You may need to start CPR if the victim is unconscious. If the victim is conscious and responsive, then you can begin first aid for burns.